Hello and welcome this Saturday afternoon for what promises to be a really exciting conversation on behalf of the Center for Policy Research and our group of stellar political scientists and election gurus who refuse to give predictions in advance of the elections and therefore have prevented CPR from having a little betting game, which
I mean, this one everybody predicted.
this one everybody predicted, but even then they were circumspect about predictions. However, they aren't circumspect about their analysis on why the elections turn out how they are. This is part of our regular election series. The Center for Policy Research's Indian Politics Initiative comes together after every election, state, national, and now municipal. As somebody who's long hoped that municipal and panchayat elections will come onto the national stage, perhaps we should celebrate that we are also talking about municipal elections, even though the reasons for those might be less to do with the capacity of municipal governments and more to do with the nature of our politics. But this is what we have to analyze here this afternoon. We are missing Gilles Vignier, who is the third of this trio that analyzes elections every year. But he is in the United States and the timing didn't work. And I'm sure that our audience, interested and keen as all of you are to understand elections, may have chosen not to be so keen on a Saturday night to discuss elections. Hence, we'll ask Gilles to talk about this on another occasion. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll follow the pattern that we usually do, which is presentations by our speakers and then an open Q&A. We'll start with Himachal Pradesh, and I'd like to invite Rahul Verma, fellow at the Center for Policy Research, to kick us off with his presentation on the Himachal Pradesh elections. And more broadly, Rahul, please, we're keen to understand Himachal Pradesh, but in the context of all three elections as well. So over to you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. So what I'm going to do is first talk about the big picture. What are the takeaways from the election? What happened in these three places, MCD, Himachal, and Gujarat? And then both Neelan and I'll talk about each of them separately, and finally Neelan will conclude. So in some ways, the three results present a mixed bag. for a long time, for last 25 to 30 years, in Himachal Pradesh, there is a system of alternating government. So every 5th year, a new player comes to power. They were hoping to do a Uttarakhand in Himachal. That was BJP's plan. And BJP seems to be relying a lot more on perhaps a third player being present in the state, Aam Aadmi Party, which tactfully retreated midway campaign. So BJP is going to lead this election. Oh, we lost, but we lost by less than 1 percentage point, 0.9, right? And so both can take some solace in the fact what happened in Himachal Pradesh. But if you divide the Himachal Pradesh into 4 Lok Sabha constituencies, Kangra, Mandi, Hamirpur, and Shimla, these are the 4 constituencies, and all 4 are held by the BJP at the moment. In fact, during the 2019 elections, BJP had 69% vote in Himachal Pradesh. So to come down from 69 to 43 is basically a 26 percentage point loss. In that sense, the entire campaign that BJP has been trying to build in some of these states, double engine popularity of prime minister, seem to haven't catapult BJP to victory. And people have different arguments. One argument is that the BJP government wasn't very in the state. Second, they faced a lot of rebellions, and we all saw that viral video where prime minister was talking to a rebel politician and saying, if we have some connection, you should drop out of the race. So at least 8 to 10 seats in Himachal Pradesh. The argument is that BJP lost because of these rebel candidates, because in sum total, the difference between total votes of the Congress and BJP is less than 40,000 across the state. And so these 10 and 12 candidates have damaged. So if you look at the chart 1, basically the first chart is about the PC-wise vote share, so in 2017, and the second chart is of 2022. Basically, the Congress, and so because the gap between the two parties is very, very close, in Kangra, while the gap between Congress is very low, actually Kangra is said to be the well-weathered constituency or the region of the state. Last time BJP had done really well there in terms of seats. This time they have lost heavily in Kangra region in terms of seats, though the vote shares are very similar. BJP still managed to maintain a large portion of leads in the Mandi region, but in Hamirpur, where the Union Minister Anurag Thakur comes, and Shimla, in both places, BJP lost a quite substantial number of votes. Let's go to the next slide. So in that sense, if we sort of like look at the 2017 and 2022 results from the number of seats, BJP in the Kangra region had 13 seats, which came down to 5. In the Mandi, they had again 13 seats, where they have managed to maintain their sort of like performance and are still at 12. But even in Hamirpur and Shimla, they lost a quite substantial number of seats. So to sum up Himachal Pradesh, what actually happened, and we still need to figure out with more detailed analysis. Last time, the gap between the Congress and the BJP was more than 6 percentage points, which resulted in a gap of 20 seats. What happened this time, that the gap between Congress is just 1% or less than 1%, but the gap that has been produced is 15 seats. BJP is at 25 seats and the Congress is at 40 seats. So something to basically know about, like, one, the nature, how first past post the system turns out in conversion of votes to seats. And second, it becomes much more peculiar for smaller states like Himachal Pradesh, where movement of few hundred votes here and there can change the entire picture.
So I want to just foreground a little bit before we get into the numbers on Gujarat. So I think by now, all of you listening and all of us in this room understand this is a historic victory for the BJP. 158 seats this time, which is the highest number of seats ever won by a single party. in the BJP, it did so on more than 50% vote share, 52.5% vote share. And the other challengers, Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party, had much lower vote share, 27% and 13% respectively, and many fewer seats, 17 seats and 5 seats respectively. Now, one way to think about what this 158 seats is yes, it's a historic performance. No party has ever won so many seats. This actually beats Madhav Singh Solanki's record from 1985, in which the Congress had won 149 seats. Well, it's important to recognize that the Solanki government actually had a much higher vote share at 56%. And that in many ways is the real story, which is to say that even though the BJP gained from 49% vote share 5 years ago to 52 to 53%, so about 3 to 4 percentage points, part of what is happening to get the BJP this number of seats is that there has been some amount of vote splitting between the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party, which has decreased the seat tally for both parties. So I want to just quickly talk through some of these numbers and then talk about some things that we've actually not put up here because they're a little more technical and they're hard to describe in chart or graphic form. So we've broken Gujarat into four regions: North, Central, South, and Saurashtra. These are regions that have been given to us by TCPD, the Trivedi Center on Political Data, but broadly, anybody analyzing Gujarat will create 4 regions that look something like this. We may disagree on a few seats. And the key sort of point here is that we see that the Aam Aadmi Party's vote share is significantly higher in South Gujarat and Saurashtra. And when we look at the strike rates, we see the strike rates are very, very low for both Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party. When we look back at strike rates from 5 years ago, we know that the Congress Party had done very well with rural voters. In Saurashtra in particular, the Congress actually had a strike rate of 56%. It had won a majority of the seats. This time, as you can see, the strike rates in Saurashtra for Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party have both dropped below 10%. It just so happens that if you were to combine the vote shares of the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party, you'll have exactly the same number of seats as 2017. They combined would have had a strike rate of 56%. So what is interesting about Aam Aadmi Party's entry into Gujarat is not that whether or not the Aam Aadmi Party had entered, the BJP would have won, it would have won easily. But it has entered exactly where the Congress Party was strongest. And so that's part of the reason why we're seeing these kinds of numbers. And so for me, the real story coming out of Gujarat is that if 5 years ago, the Congress Party had been able to benefit from rural discontent in Saurashtra and had won a majority of the seats, it says something about how lackluster the Congress Connect is in that region and how lackluster the Congress organization is. That's exactly where Aam Aadmi Party is able to break into and create a split in votes at the seat level. So there are a number of people who may have voted for Congress, but at this time chose to vote for Aam Aadmi Party, knowing full well that splitting the vote in the Saurashtra region would give BJP the seat, right? And that's what we saw consistently. Now, just to be very clear, even if Aam Aadmi Party and Congress had combined their vote shares together, I think across the state, they would have won. 60
would have been 122.
Exactly.
And they have been around 56 or 57.
Exactly. So I've seen different numbers based on how people are aggregating, but the numbers are between 56 and 62. So around 60 seats for the combined force of Congress and Aam Aadmi Party, and around 120 seats for the BJP. So there's no question that the BJP was going to win. The real point here, though, is that it says something about the Congress and Aam Aadmi Party. The Aam Aadmi Party is able to break into a region like this as the first place it goes in. And when we think about the trend for Aam Aadmi Party going forward, did it get the kinds of numbers the exit polls were predicting? No, right? It looks like it's underperformed the exit polls by about 5 percentage points. But in some sense, it did what it needed to do. It has genuinely gained some vote share in the state. It has particular regions that it has specialized in. And the Congress party is quite demoralized in the state. And the question going 5 years from now is, does the Congress party collapse, right? And do a lot of those opposition voters move towards Aam Aadmi Party? Do some of the existing parts of the Congress party organization switch to either the BJP or the Aam Aadmi Party? That's something we'll have to see going forward. The reason why this is consequential for Gujarat and actually for the nation is that Punjab still in a number of ways is a weird case, right? It has a very different kind of population. The Akali Dal was the lead partner, not the BJP. Gujarat is a traditionally BJP Congress contest state, like much of the Hindi belt. If the Aam Aadmi Party is able to break in to a state like this, Delhi also was traditionally a BJP Congress thing, but it's a city state, right? Then this perhaps becomes a blueprint for how the Aam Aadmi Party can spread across the country. If the Aam Aadmi Party is not able to do it, then it shows that there's still some resistance in this sort of bipolarity that we've seen between the BJP and the Congress, and a new challenger can't simply just come in like what we've seen in Punjab and Delhi. The other question for the Aam Aadmi Party is that it has broken into one and actually two regions, South Gujarat and Saurashtra, South Gujarat around Surat, although not in urban areas. Is it the case that Saurashtra and South Gujarat will be something like what Malwa was for the Aam Aadmi Party 5 years ago, where the Aam Aadmi Party had broken into one region but had not yet spread across the state? So in the elections this year, Aam Aadmi Party then spread across the state and was able to sweep. If the Congress collapses, that's exactly what Aam Aadmi Party would get. It would get the rest of the opposition vote. So just one sort of very quick thing, just to look at regional variations. This map makes very clear exactly what is happening. The darker the color, the higher the Aam Aadmi Party's vote share. You can see it has broken into very, very specific regions: Tribal Belt, South Gujarat, Saurashtra. Most importantly, it has literally copied the opposition blueprint from 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we counted 40 urban seats in Gujarat. BJP won 35%, 35 of them, right? Strike rate of 88%. This time, out of those 40 seats, the BJP won 38 on an average vote share of 63%. So the urban areas have been a core vote bank for the BJP. They continue to be so. The rural areas are where the Congress had won a lot of seats. We count 58 very rural seats in Gujarat. Out of those seats, if I just need to pull up the number here real quick, out of those seats, the BJP's average vote share was 48%, so 15 percentage points less than in urban areas. And the BJP had won 46 seats, so a strike rate around 80%. But had we combined Aam Aadmi Party and Congress vote shares, again looking at the opposition vote share, the combined vote share is higher than the BJP in half of those constituencies, 29. Which is to say that there's still a lot of anti-BJP vote in rural Gujarat that has not changed from 5 years ago. What has happened is that the region in which that was the most pronounced, Saurashtra, and the parts of the state in which it was most pronounced, which is the rural vote, has simply gotten split between Congress and Aam Aadmi Party. Okay, next.
So let me basically add 3 points to what Neelan was saying about Gujarat. And these points are specific to each party. So what Gujarat tells us about Aam Aadmi Party, that so far we had thought Aam Aadmi Party to be an urban middle class phenomena that first got broken in Punjab, and now looking at Gujarat, it's sort of like the trend is confirmed that they are drawing more votes from rural areas, among poorer sections, and among lower caste. Right. So now you like Aam Aadmi Party traction is national. And so people are talking about this party, people do ask questions. And second, it has basically changed its social base character, which now leads to the question about Congress party. Aam Aadmi Party a couple of years ago had done well in the Saurashtra municipal elections, and Congress should have got forewarned about the possibility of new player moving in. But it seems, that the party did not have a plan in place about the state. In last 5 years, more than 21 MLAs who had won on the Congress ticket moved towards BJP. In last 5 years, the party actually changed 3 or 4 state level president. In fact, there is no single president at the moment in Gujarat. There are dozens of people who are working president for the state. And so in some ways, you think of this as a decentralized model or a collective leadership, but then who do you hold accountable? Because everyone in the party who matters is the president of the party, right? And so this is something, and as Neelan was rightly pointing out, what for Aam Aadmi Party, it has realized at the moment pays them to target Congress. So in next year in 2023, most of the states that are going to pull Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, all are classic to bipolar states with Congress BJP competition. And AAP is likely to move in some of them. It may not succeed, but it will again create the same hype it tried to create in Gujarat, that we are 20%, 25% will get 90 seats, and in some hype, they will try to get their foothold there. Final point is about the BJP and also about what has happened in Gujarat with the co-chair. Gujarat now displays classic dominant party state of BJP, like what left was for West Bengal for 30 years. And in a classic dominant party state, you have all those characteristics of deep organizational machinery, social coalition. In BJP's case, the social coalition is also marked by polarization on the previous axis, all those things. But it seems, and especially the shares which we have, some Democrats surveys are pointing out, is that there is a new coalition that BJP has created. Congress coalition, Madhavan coalition was calm. It seems now there is a calm coalition, which is same Kshatriya OBC vote base, Dalit vote base, Adivasi vote base, and Adidas. And so now I don't know how sustainable this new coalition would be, and they have not started talking about it. But the survey data, what I saw of Axis, basically confirms this coalition. But there is also, even within the victory of Uttar Pradesh and Gujarat and Himachal, I see there is some cause of concern which BJP should heed, which is both in UP, Gujarat, as well as in Himachal, the 18 to 34-year group is less likely to vote for BJP than it was voting previously. So earlier, the younger generation was like behind BJP, but it seems in comparison to the older generation, voting less, and most likely the reason the younger group is economic anxieties related unemployment and other things. Let's move to Delhi.
Okay, so Delhi municipal election. I'm not so one thing. I'm not sure if we really care about Delhi or the country really cares about Delhi. I mean, we of course care because we're here and we vote here. But the very nature of what this election was and the fact that Delhi controls a lot of the media meant that this also became a national or state level election. And that had certain consequences, right? So we understand that for all of the hype that Delhi gets, historically, municipal elections have still been quite local as they should be, because that's how the connection between a councillor and the citizen is built, local patronage networks, ability to get work done. This time, at least in terms of rhetoric, there was a complete absence of that kind of local language. And in a very peculiar way, and I've made this point to many others, that the BJP is actually the party that made this a more national party, and they actually suffered because of it. The BJP is a party that has been in charge of MCD for many, many years. It has a lot of councillors that have local patronage networks, and they could have benefited from that. By turning this into a more state level or national level election, they actually opened the door to the vote being a Kejriwal versus Modi fight. And part of the reason why you saw a grand sweep, I think, for the Aam Aadmi Party, although again underperforming the exit polls, and we'll talk a little bit about why that happened, is that this became more of a state level election in many voters' minds. Now, just a couple of things summarizing. I'll just talk about the last two elections because 10 years ago is a long time. So 5 years ago, the BJP swept the MCD polls. At that point, there were three municipal corporations with 181 seats out of 272 seats on 37% vote share. And you can see that there was quite a bit of vote splitting between the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party, 48 seats and 30 seats on 26% vote share and 21% vote share, respectively. And there are a couple of things to note about this. The BJP had been in power for a very long time in MCD, despite not being in power in the state, right? So before the Aam Aadmi Party came to power, Sheila Dikshit and the Congress Party had been controlling at the state level Delhi. So there had been, for a long time, there had been a disjuncture between what is happening at MCD and what has happened at the state level. That has changed this time. The second thing is if we look at the vote share of the MCD across 2012, 2017, 2022, the vote share for the BJP is remarkably consistent, right? The fact that it went up 2 percentage points this time is not surprising because one of the parties collapsed, right? That small increase of vote share is to be expected. So the BJP has been remarkably stable in its vote share. It is the Aam Aadmi Party that has gained from the collapse of the Congress. So just as we were talking about vote splitting this time in Saurashtra and Gujarat, that is really, I think, a very good lens to see what had happened to the Aam Aadmi Party in Congress in 2017, where the non-BJP votes very much got split down to the constituency level, down to the seat level, all across the state. That did not happen to the same extent this time. Now, part of the challenge of analyzing Delhi's results is that we had a delimitation of municipal wards just before the election. So we simply cannot, at a ward-wise level, look at how things changed without doing many more things, looking at polling booth level data and matching. That analysis will happen, but it'll take a few weeks. But until then, what we can do is we can take the 272 seats that wards that existed in 2017, match them to political boundaries, assembly constituencies, parliamentary constituencies, and we can also do that with the 250 seats, the 250 wards that were there in 2022. So we've actually done this to much smaller scales, but purely for the purpose of visualization, because the point is made no matter how you break the data. I say that the MCD elections is really a tale of two Delhis, right? So Delhi has 7 parliamentary constituencies. It has South Delhi, New Delhi, West Delhi, Northwest Delhi, Chandni Chowk, East Delhi, Northeast Delhi. I think I said 7, maybe I didn't. So no, I did say that. Good. So 3 of these constituencies, Northeast Delhi, East Delhi, and Chandni Chowk, the BJP largely held its seat share. And the Aam Aadmi Party performed better in Chandni Chowk than it had in the past. But the Congress Party largely held a lot of its vote share in East Delhi and Northeast Delhi. Now, for those of us from Delhi, we know what this means. East and Northeast Delhi is the site of highest levels of Hindu-Muslim polarization in the city. Also, Northeast Delhi was the site of the 2020 riots, right? These are also regions with large Muslim populations. In fact, when you look at Northeast Delhi, you find that the Congress actually held its vote share almost down to the seat level from 5 years ago. It suggests that Aam Aadmi Party's turn towards soft Hindutva and welfareism, given the kind of polarization that we have seen in Delhi, simply means that it lost the Muslim voters, right? I think many political analysts suggested that, the Muslim community wouldn't look after its own interests, is going to be strategic, is going to vote for AAP again. Given the way that the Aam Aadmi Party has played Hindu-Muslim polarization and violence against the Muslim community, I think that perhaps it was a bridge too far, and we can see in many places the Muslim community has not voted with the Aam Aadmi Party. But I think also the other side of Delhi, South Delhi, West Delhi, Northwest Delhi, New Delhi, these are more well-off voters. For those of us who live in Delhi, we know that West Delhi is associated with Punjabi Hindus, refugee families. These were seen as a core vote bank for the BJP. It says something about the nimbleness of the Aam Aadmi Party. It also says something about the benefits it has gained from moving slightly rightward, playing soft Hindutva, that it has been able to steal the West Delhi constituencies, the West Delhi wards away from the BJP. So if you just look at this map, I'm wondering if is it possible to zoom in at all? I know it's a it can't. Okay. So there are some very, very noticeable shifts that happen here. So in New Delhi, 5 years ago, the BJP held 90% seat share, and this time, 5 years later, it has dropped to 20%. The Aam Aadmi Party has gone from 4% seat share in New Delhi constituency to 80%. Right, West Delhi, the area that I was talking about, right? The BJP had 2/3 of the seats, 67% seat share, and it's dropped to just 34% to 1/3 seat share. The Aam Aadmi Party had 16% seat share in 2017, and that has jumped to 63% to 2/3. So they've literally just eaten up the BJP in these seats, right? So 2 or 3 important questions for Delhi. I do think that with the state elections and the kinds of coalitions we see in the MCD elections, the Aam Aadmi Party has built a stable majority base within the state. Maybe not for national elections, where the BJP, Delhi still disproportionately votes for the BJP. But it is clearly coming at the cost of isolating the Muslim community in Delhi, right? And as we think about the national implications for Aam Aadmi Party spreading beyond Delhi, going into Congress-dominated areas, I'd like to actually take a second and also talk about Gujarat. I think one of the fascinating things, I think many of us were on other TV channels and so on and so forth, is the complete lack of discourse about the political impact of 2002 in Gujarat, right? The role that associating the Congress party with the Muslim community plays across the country and across states. And the political impact it has had for the Aam Aadmi Party to not associate itself with the Muslim community. So when we think about what we see in Delhi today, what we've seen in Gujarat with is complete isolation of the Muslim community. It's not even discussed, right? What happened 20 years ago. I think that we should make sure that our discussion of national trends of state elections isn't just about which party is eating up whom, but also what are its demographic and narrative impacts in the country. I'll just leave it there.
Okay, so
Sorry. So what seems to be happening that out of these 9 seats, 7 are actually coming from the Okhla area, right? And so it's a much more local affair for the Congress party in that sense, rather than the party at least still having 10 or 12% of vote share. Which also, and someone should be studying this, especially people who are, doing deep field work, and a question that Neelan raised about ideological flip-flops of the Aam Aadmi Party. Why
did sort of like, Aam Aadmi Party didn't do that badly in the Chandni Chowk area, but did badly in the Okla area? Is it just a candidate effect, or the communities in these two places are thinking about Aam Aadmi Party very differently? Okay, final point, how does the national picture and going forward to 2024 looks like? Basically, these elections tells us that there are four kinds of formations that are present in the country, and they are basically banking on four very different ways of mobilizing the election or the voters. First one is BJP. For them, elections are of course important. They want to win every election, whether it's a municipality election or a national election, and Prime Minister campaigns everywhere as if he is himself on the ticket, right? And it's not just about winning the election, but they see elections as an instrument of organizational and ideological expansion. On the second hand, you have the Congress party, the other national party, which it seems to be not able to make its mind on electoral politics, organizational rejuvenation, and ideological clarity. These three at times become very, very different for them, and they seem to be paying a price of it, right? Like getting marginalized in two states is a bigger price in terms of, like, if you're thinking of electoral politics. The third is Aam Aadmi Party. Now that it's getting the national recognition of a national party, surveys are showing that there is a traction. But for now, Aam Aadmi Party sees each of these elections from a very instrumentalist perspective. The work that needs to go into building organization has not been happening. And so it remains a question to be thought. They have got a 12% vote, but if they don't keep doing work on the ground, how long that organization is going to sustain, right? In Uttarakhand, within a month, their state leader basically jumped to the BJP. So unless you have an organizational base and some sort of like ideological clarity, it would be difficult for Aam Aadmi Party to sustain whatever momentum they are gaining. And the fourth point is, and these are fourth level formation, which is state level parties, right? And so what these elections tell us, that states remain a competitive arena despite nationally BJP being ahead. States are open for competition, and it all depends on what state parties or even state formations of national parties are doing in those states. And there we have some differences. So you will have players like TMC and DMK who are within their states, but they keep on challenging the BJP every now and then, even in the national discourse. Then you have the second kind of parties, which is YSR and BJD, which are self-content parties. They only care about their own state and only talk to BJP when their turf is challenged, but they don't take on or challenge BJP nationally in national discourse. In fact, on many occasions, they side with the BJP in the parliament on voting. And then you have third kind of parties which talk, but they don't seem to be doing what is expected of them. Samajwadi Party basically becomes only active during elections, or you have other formations which are not doing the legwork. So in net total, these 8 or 10 elections which are going to take place will decide what would be the model of politics in 2024. Will it be BJP on one pole and others getting together, or given that Aam Aadmi Party is trying to enter into different spaces, will it be a competition for the second spot, which keeps BJP buoyant for some time? Those are the questions that will only become clear with the polls that are coming next year. So thank you so much for patiently listening to us. Happy to answer questions, comments, suggestions, feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. Data and framework in which to try and think about the bigger how the reports right at the end. I have a whole bunch of things to ask you. There's already 15 questions in the Q&A. Interest of can just give me a summary of questions for that. Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry.
We can share it.
What, sorry. The last two Vidhan Sabha elections were between 65 and 70%. I don't remember offhand what the Lok Sabha number was in 2019. And so there is a bit of an apples and oranges. I mean, the difference between who is the people who voted this time and who was 65 to 70 who turned out in Vidhan Sabha, I think that had to also factor into our understanding of where others gained, where others lost, at whose expense. And on the Muslims, in the last two non-Vidhan Sabha elections, that is 2019 and 2020, a number of Muslims who voted for us in 2020 did not vote for us. So I would question the extent to which we're talking about a post-riots phenomenon or a post-soap optimism phenomenon. I think the people who voted Congress 3 elections ago that were not Vidhan Sabha. And Vidhan Sabha becomes a sequential contest. Is it Kejriwal, is it not Kejriwal? You know Congress can't form a government. Then you vote for us. So I think it's much more about tactical voting and less about a kind of ideological backlash and what happened.
Okay. So, I mean, I think there are some trends that we would have to work through to figure out, what is happening with, the votes of the Muslim community, but also what is happening in turn with Hindus in those areas, right? I mean, I think we know that the Northeast Delhi is a place where even in 2020, the BJP had performed better than it had across the rest of the state. And that was before the riots. So some of this is just having to control for an existing situation on the ground and whether or not it is the response to soft Hindutva, whether it is riots as a breakpoint. I tend to agree that the riots are not a breakpoint. I think that I think these divisions were, I think it was clear that Aam Aadmi Party was not going to speak up beyond a certain level after 2017, actually. And so while there may have been a reason for tactical voting in 2020 because the Congress party had gone to zero and it was more of a state level election, these are more local level elections. I think the thing that we don't know, and it's a comment that I made right in the beginning, is that we tend to think of municipal elections as local elections, that your municipal councillor can do something for you. So there may actually be a reason, even if I don't believe that the Congress party is going to control MCD, for me to vote for the councillor who is going to most represent my interest in a state that is increasingly hostile towards the Muslim community, right? And so that is going to, of course, require a lot more analysis, much more than just doing survey work. But my sense is some of the numbers that we are seeing and why they are different than 2020 or 2015 or 2019 is the localness of the election still matters in certain ways, and the localness of what a councillor can do in terms of, at a minimum, protecting constituents, maybe not much more else, creates some differences in terms of how these people might vote across these different levels. You want to say something?
Sure. I think there are some things about the municipal election that may merit a slightly different framework in which we make sense of the data, right? Firstly, the 2017 municipal election was also a national election. The Prime Minister came, it was the first time that actually the municipal election became, and as a voter in Delhi, it was actually probably the first time that I voted in a municipal election. It says something. And it also came against a backdrop of the big victory in UP. And I do think that that made a difference to the psychology of the local mobilization and the psychology of how the voters responded. It also came at a time when the Aam Aadmi Party was still not, so they had spent a lot of effort mobilizing through their grassroots networks, workers for the municipal elections, but it was still relatively new. It had only come really into power in 2015. It was only beginning to dispense patronage between 2015 and 2016, and then it got distracted with Punjab, and the municipal elections all came at the same time. So I think that the Aam Aadmi Party in 2017 was also very different to the Aam Aadmi Party in 2022. And I think that also plays out into how they were able to get where they have in 2022. I do think that there's a big story that we need to better understand about the Muslim voter in Delhi. Don't forget that February 2020 was against a backdrop of a very sensitive environment of polarization. And in that sensitivity, Muslims were making a tactical shift to the Aam Aadmi Party in the hope that that would get them somewhere, and very quickly things changed for them. So does this, so I guess the question is not so much about the tactical shift of the Muslim voter as much as whether the Muslim voter really now sees the Congress, when it's around at a very local level, as its only option. And then what does that mean for the longer term, both at the local level as well as national elections? The third element of this is the peculiarity of Delhi and the fact that the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP made it their strategy to constantly blame each other for the inability to get anything done. Now, this could pan out in different ways, as in the voter could say, let's just have the BJP and you get all three layers the same and things will happen. Or the voter will say, let's try and get rid of one element of the BJP that we can, at least in the MCD. So at least, the city state of Delhi and the municipality can work together. And it's possible that that may have also made a difference. But I am surprised at how much municipal election actually was not about municipal issues, at least in its posturing, and even to a degree in the way in which the manifestos or the kind of election promises, etc. I mean, there's a little bit of conversation about sewage and garbage and dirt, but didn't go beyond that in terms of really what the mayor does and doesn't do. And to be entirely honest, they don't do very much. So once you make it a national election, it becomes about national prestige. Anyway, I think all of these things contribute into the final outcomes of Delhi. You want to add anything? Okay, we have, sorry, I'll just take a couple of questions from the Zoom, and then I'll come to you. So I'll take two questions together. One was about the relative strength of the urban vote for the BJP in Saurashtra, and related and what link that may or may not have to the completion of the Narmada project. The second is about the BJP victory in Gujarat and the Congress victory in Himachal Pradesh, and what impact this might have on the Karnataka election. Although I know that both of you will say you can't.
So I think Leon can take first, I can take second.
No, go ahead.
No, take the first one.
Start with the second question. I'll
Okay. So everyone is going to read the verdict they would like to read the way they want to. I think, see, so each election, as I also said at the last, are like unique in their own ways. In Karnataka, it would Congress versus BJP competition. First thing that needs to be seen is Aam Aadmi Party going to be serious about Karnataka and enter into the race. If they enter into the race, then it will depend on whether they are a 2 to 4% party, 8 to 10% party, or 15 to 18% party. So far, the signals has been that wherever Aam Aadmi Party is entering, it's damaging the prospects of Congress. So Congress should get really serious about what is Aam Aadmi Party going to do. Otherwise, Congress is well poised to challenge BJP in Karnataka, And the reason is very simple. The record of BJP government in Karnataka is not great. The state leadership is not very charismatic. In that sense, the two Congress leaders have their own personalities and persona on the ground. But if they two keep fighting and damaging other, then Congress will be in trouble because one is the mass campaigner and second one is the resource mobilizer, right? And so that's why the competition is open. In this Congress versus BJP competition, what we are forgetting is JDS, which used to be an important player, and I still think it's an important player in the South Karnataka region before this election. But Congress and JDS made a mistake in 2019 election. Till 2019, BJP never had presence in South Karnataka region. Their combination, because they became allies, it allowed BJP to move in and do well in South Karnataka. So I also don't know whether BJP will be able to hold on to its gains made in South Karnataka that it did in 2019. So competition in Karnataka is open.
So there's a question about Narmada and urban Saurashtra. So, I mean, it's unclear what the causes are because the BJP does well in every urban seat, right? So just to, I should take a step back. So it's actually very hard to characterize what is urban, what is rural. We all do a lot of work on that here at CPR. So the way that we actually did it is that we took European Space Agency data and looked at the density of settlements. So any place that had more than 50% dense settlement, we called urban, that's about 40 seats, and it covers the regions that you might think, and some peri-urban areas. And then the places that are less dense, we counted as rural. Now, intuitively, it'll be what you think it is: Rajkot, Surat, Vadodara, whatever. But I think the hold over the urban electorate is far more than one particular issue, and I don't think it's a regional hold. I mean, what is fascinating about Gujarat is that it is a fairly urbanized state, and the urban vote shares are just high, right? I mean, it's not, if I gave you an average 63%, but when you have an average that is that high, that means that the number is going to be high everywhere, right? And so there is certainly a hold over the urban voter more generally, or what it means to be an urban Gujarati. The social demographics of any city in Gujarat, the local economy of any city in Gujarat, which I think overrides any kind of particular regional issue. Looking ahead to Karnataka, I mean, I think I don't want to say too much. It's anybody's guess. Huh? Competition is open is a good way to say it. Only thing that I would say is that what is fascinating as we go forward, looking at every state, is the way the BJP Central Command is thinking about leaders that existed in the BJP vis-a-vis bringing in new leaders. That is, of course, something we've all been noting since 2014. The role of the Central Command and the BJP in centralizing power at the top, which means changing the old guard, bringing in people who are, beholden to the people at the top, and the extent to which certain kinds of characters can resist it, either change, adapt, or get shunted out, right? These are the sets of different strategies. And I think in addition to just simply analyzing what the Congress party is doing, one of the things that we're going to do in Karnataka is also trying to understand what is happening within the BJP, because it is one of these fascinating battlegrounds, even for the local state cadre.
Thank you.
Sorry. Sir, I like to raise two issues, sir. My first is emergence of AAP. How they came about in terms of vote bank, right? I'm not talking about the seats. Overall, you see every state, their vote bank is increasing. it is, and they are at the cost of the Congress, not the Congress, the BJP. What does this leads to? And that when in the first strike, when Kejriwal went to Varanasi, and Modi ji won. That was their first strike. They divided the vote over there, and from there they followed on. It's same thing is happening. The vote bank is increasing, and this is one. And this is led to what? Now you raised the question. 24 elections, sir. 24 elections. I have 4 things to state. This is first is the elections are won, or the party is led, or the campaign is led by the leader. So far, it has been Modi on the scene. Now, he's been somehow challenged by APP leader Kejriwal. Now, here is the question. Congress seems to be confused throughout in the leadership and other terms. They're right. Let's take it. The second is cadre. In the election, I'm still on the election. Leader, the cadre. They have the largest number of cadre. Number 3, the cash. This is the leader, cadre, cash, and the 4th one I'm coming. Cash, who has the abundant cash? You know it. I don't have to talk about it. My 4th is at the last. It's a new element that I entered into elections and in the politics in India. Mind you, I've been in the politics for the last, I would say, so many years. Now, this new element is devastating. They call it a reverie, and we call it freebies. Or Hindi, the leaders have turned into Bahurupiyas. All these leaders are Bahurupiyas. You can't catch them because they're Bahurupiyas, and they're coming with the reveries. Now, this is the new element which nobody is taking into account. Thank you.
So my question is that which thing goes in favor of Aam Aadmi Party in South Gujarat? We have seen the report that it has secured 16.4% vote, because South Gujarat is a part which is linked with the prestige of state BJP president CR Patil, who has secured highest vote in Lok Sabha, that is Municipal. So this thing goes in favor of Aam Aadmi Party. And my second part is that this is first time that any CM candidate who has secured a highest vote in Gujarat, that is CM from Ghat Bhupendra. It is first time.
Thank you. I'll just add 2 questions from Zoom, and then both of you can choose which you want to pick up. One is about the possibility of the return of the phenomenon of national outcomes in elections being a total of the state-wise election results from the current wave that a national wave which is in favor of the dominant party. The second is a 2-part question. Gujarat, to what degree did lower voter turnout make an impact on the results, if at all? And on Himachal, some of the key takeaways from the campaign itself that may have impacted the Congress's victory.
Okay, so I'll start with an easy one. Lower voter turnout had no impact in Gujarat, because the reason why there was a lower voter turnout is because everybody knew who was going to win. So there was I don't think it would be very surprising if it made any difference when we look at the kind of vote margins that we
That's
saw.
theoretically true across the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, whenever winner is X candidate known, the turnout is likely to be low.
That's right. So I think it's an interesting question about who is interested in voting only when elections are close versus not close. But in terms of whether it would have impacted the outcome, I don't see much there. Now, other thing I'll just quickly say is on South Gujarat. So South Gujarat is interesting, and I didn't talk much about it. It's interesting because it's somewhere where Congress was not doing very well, actually, right? So it's actually a place that AAP broke into, where the Congress actually had been doing better in central and northern Gujarat compared to the south of the state. And that was a bit of a shock even last time, because we imagined Surat and surrounding areas, there was a lot of discontent, a lot of anti-incumbency, and it didn't materialize for the Congress party. I think that there are 2 things that are happening. We know that in the municipal polls, yes, the BJP controls the urban vote share, but even in the municipal polls, the Aam Aadmi Party broke into the area, right? And I think that there is something about what the Aam Aadmi Party is doing, not just in Gujarat, but across the country, that is able to tap into discontent about a certain kind of governance and economic performance. That is something that I think people do across the country. When you ask people, what do you think of Kejriwal? You hear Delhi model, governance is good, cares about trade, something, right? Whether it's true or not is a separate question. We have much more research on that, and it's true for some things and not true for others. But that's the perception that exists. And so there's an interesting question out there about what does a place like Surat or what does a place like South Gujarat mean for a party like the Aam Aadmi Party. The other thing I'll just quickly say is that some of those seats, in terms of the way the grouping works, that's actually where a lot of the tribal seats are as well. And that's actually another place where you see the Aam Aadmi Party made some ground vis-a-vis the caucus.
Okay, so, thank you, Yamin. You largely answered the question that you asked, so I don't need to add anything. You're absolutely right. In any election, leader, cadre, organization, welfare, all of cash, meaning resources. Yes, welfare, revenue, all of these things matter, and they do decide election outcomes. I have no disagreements about this. I think the question on national versus state one is interesting, but it depends on how you want to think about this question. The Palchikar Yadav thesis on national elections being aggregation of state results had a much more complicated notion behind it. But the popular rendition of this argument becomes that national outcome is basically aggregation of state outcomes, which is you have, of course, the bigger unit is made up of smaller units. If you're not going to win in states, you can't win national election. So even in 2024, actually, if you ask me, BJP's victory and loss is going to be decided by 5 states, just 5 states. You can divide the 30 states into 3 regions, 3 kind of states. One is going to be Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, where BJP is not going to do much. The second one is going to be UP Gujarat, where most likely BJP will do repeats its 2019 performance. So the 5 states that are left are Maharashtra, Bihar, Bengal, Odisha, and Telangana. These are the 5 states where BJP has to not only save what it had, but also make some gains. If they don't, then they will come down the tally. So every time elections are aggregation of some state, it depends on which those states are.
Where do you put Rajasthan?
Rajasthan, I put it in UP, Gujarat.
What about Karnataka, where they have 8 seats and 5?
वो 2-4 बार आगे पीछे होगा, से ज्यादा नहीं.
Great. Well, I think,
वो सारे.
is there anything else, Vaibhav, on Zoom that we might want to respond to? Great. Well, thank you very much, as always, Neelan, Rahul, for such a rich set of presentations that have thrown up such an importance, both data and a very important set of questions within which we can frame our understanding of where we are at this particular moment, what we have to look forward to in May with Karnataka, and then for the big bang of December. So what we have to look forward to for elections of 2023 before we get to 2024, and also a good reminder that every election is a reminder that a day is a year in politics and lots changes. So we're not quite sure where we will be in 2024, although there are clear trends that are emerging. Thank you both. And thanks to all of you for coming all the way here on a Saturday, and to everybody on Zoom for listening in, and looking forward to your continued engagement with our work. Thank you.